Parshat Mishpatim feels like a shift. After the thunder and drama of Har Sinai, we suddenly drop into a long list of laws, detailed, practical, sometimes technical. How to treat workers, how to handle injuries and damages, how to lend money, how to keep a kosher home. It's as if the Torah is saying, Revelation isn't just about big moments. It's about how you live on a Tuesday afternoon. In your business, in your kitchen, your courtroom, your neighborhood. The Parsha opens with a verse that can feel hard to hear. Ki tikne eved ivri shesh shanim ya'avod uvashvi'it yetzeh lechovshi hinam. When you acquire a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go free. From our modern Western lens, we want to say, how can the Torah talk about slaves at all? Why not abolish slavery completely? But Mishpatim is speaking into a world where slavery is simply a fact, and where for many people, being sold as a slave was the alternative to debtor's prison, or even starvation. The Torah doesn't erase that world. It steps into it and begins to reshape it from the inside. Or Chaim ben Moshe ibn Attal, a Moroccan Kabbalist and commentator from the 18th century, notices the wording. Ki tikne eved ivri. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he suggests a bold reading. If you're going to buy a slave, choose a Jewish one rather than a non-Jew. Because a non-Jewish slave you can keep forever. But a Hebrew slave you must free in the 7th year. In other words, the Torah is pushing us away from the idea of permanent human ownership. Built into the system is a release, a reminder this person is not your property, at least not forever. Shmuel David Luzzatto, a 19th century Italian scholar and poet, points out how revolutionary this is. In the ancient world, slaves were often treated like animals. A judge didn't even consider their rights. The Torah, Asher d'rachecha darchei noam, whose ways are ways of pleasantness, chooses to open its civil law code with laws about the slave and the maidservant. It takes the people at the very bottom of the social ladder and says, start there. Give them limits, rights, dignity. Abarbanel, Don Yitzhak Abarbanel, a statesman and commentator who lived through the Spanish expulsion, ties this directly back to the first of the 10 commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of the house of slaves. He writes that because God took us out of Egypt, he acquired us as slaves, his servants. Avadaihem, they are my servants, says God. Asher hotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim. We're never meant to be permanent slaves to any other human being. So Mishpatim begins by limiting Hebrew slavery to 6 years and insisting on a 7th year of freedom. A living reminder that we once walked out of slavery and we do not turn back into it. So even in this hardest area, the Torah is quietly rewriting the rules. It says, you live in a slave-holding world, but you're not going to live in it with the memory and without the memory, limits, and compassion. From there, the Parsha moves into business and civil law, including a verse that on the surface sounds very technical, but our commentators turn it into a powerful moral teaching. When someone opens a pit or digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, and then it continues with the laws. So Ibn Ezra, a 12th century Iberian commentator and grammarian, says the Torah brings this case because God does not want an animal to die lashav, for nothing. Well, and also because the owner is harmed by this loss. In today's words, if your negligence destroys someone's work tool, their ox, their truck, their computer, that's not bad luck. You opened the pit. You pay. Ben Ish Chai, Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad, a 19th century Iraqi sage and master of halacha and stories, reads this as a mashal about influence. He says, imagine a thief. He hides in someone's house by day, plans to steal by night. He steals, opens the door to escape, and leaves the door wide open. Later, other thieves walk by, see the door open, and go in and steal even more. So, who's responsible? Ben Ish Chai says, of course the second group of thieves is guilty. But the first thief, the one who left the door open, hu hagorem, he's the one who caused it. Even if he himself didn't manage to steal anything in the end, the moment he leaves that door open, he shares in whatever follows. And then he turns it on us. He says, V'chiv tach ish bor. If a person opens a pit by inventing or publicizing a new way to cheat in business, to play with weights and measures, to cut corners in ethics, even if he himself doesn't fully act on it, he's created an opening. Others will learn from him, copy him, normalize it, and he will be held accountable, not just for his own act, but for the culture he created. He quotes the saying, Lo ha'achbar ganav el ha'achor ganav. It's not the mouse that stole, it's the hole that stole. In other words, sometimes the biggest damage is not done by the last person in the chain, but by the one who dug the hole in the first place, the one who left the first door open. He even says, this responsibility continues even after death, even after the person who started the harmful pattern is no longer alive. If generations keep sinning in the way he introduced, he is still, in some sense, paying for the pit he dug. So Mishpatim is teaching us, you're not only responsible for what you do, you're responsible for what you set in motion, in your business, in your family, in your community. Then the Parsha moves to the courtroom. Lo tiyeh acharei rabim lira'ot. You shall not be after the many to do evil, and you shall not testify in a dispute to incline after the many, to pervert justice. Here the Torah warns us, do not join a corrupt majority. Don't say, well, everyone is bending the truth, so I will too. Don't twist your words to please power. Justice is not a popularity contest. Again, Mishpatim is about what happens in the very real space where money, power, and truth collide. Later, God speaks about entering the land. Little by little, I will drive them out from before you until you increase and possess the land. Step by step. Spiritually, morally, it's a progression. You get these in Mishpatim, this legal and ethical code. And then slowly, you grow them into the land on condition that you don't absorb the idolatry and moral chaos around you. All of this leads to a powerful moment of commitment. Vayikach sefer habrit, vayikra beoznei ha'am, vayomru kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. He, Moshe, took the book of the covenant and read it in the ears of the people, and they said, all that Hashem has spoken, we will do and we will hear. Now, Sforno, an Italian rabbi, physician, and commentator of the 16th century, says Moshe reads it beoznei ha'am, so that the people actually know what they're signing up for. This is not blind obedience. This is informed commitment. If they hear the details, they can avoid accidentally violating them. An na'aseh v'nishma, Sforno explains, na'aseh, we will do, means we'll act simply because God commanded, not because we're chasing reward. Like the verse in Tehillim, Osei dvaro lishmoa b'kol dvaro. Those who do his bidding, to listen to the voice of his word. First, a readiness to act. Then nishma, we will listen. It's the ongoing process of understanding and internalizing. Reggio, a 19th century Italian commentator and educator, adds a psychological layer. He says, Na'aseh is about the outward act. Nishma is about Kabbalah balev u'ba'emunah, the inner acceptance in the heart with faith. There's a big difference between a person who just goes through the motions and someone whose mitzvot flow from a heart that believes and is present. The ideal Jew does both, acts and let those actions sink in and shape the inner world. Now, how does this all connect to our lives? Parshat Mishpatim is where many concrete halachot begin, about money and interest, about slaves and workers, about damages and testimony, about meat and milk and festivals. From these psukim, through the generations, rabbis study, compare, and derive, and sometimes arrive at different conclusions. So you can have one community where fish with milk is allowed, another where they avoid that combination, and another where they only eat fish with meat. You can have different business norms, different stringencies around interest, around damages, around kashrut. When you hear the back and forth of Mishpatim, the care about slavery, about pits, about influence, about testimony, you start to see that these differences didn't come from nowhere. They come from the same Torah, applied through different lenses in different times and places, all trying to protect people, to prevent harm, to honor holiness. The question is not, why aren't we all exactly the same? The richer question is, can we see that behind our different halachic voices, we are all answering the same call? The call of Mishpatim to live a life of na'aseh v'nishma, of action and deep listening, of responsibility and faith. If we can hold that, then Mishpatim stops being just a long list of laws and becomes something much more beautiful. A shared foundation that can hold many communities, many customs, many shades of observance, all rooted in the same covenant, the same words we still say in our own way to this day. Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. All that Hashem has spoken, we will do, and we will listen.